The sound of breaking glass filled the big house as Emily dropped the water pitcher. She stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. What she saw in front of her made her heart beat so fast she thought it might jump out of her chest. There was Mr. Madison, the richest man in all of Lagos, lying on the floor of his bedroom. His wife, Mrs. Sarah Madison, was standing over him with something shiny in her hand. Mr. Madison wasn't moving. His eyes were closed, and there was red liquid on the white marble floor. "You didn't see anything," Mrs. Sarah said in a cold voice, turning to look at Emily. Her usually pretty face looked scary now. "If you tell anyone what you saw here, something very bad will happen to you and your little sister." Emily's hands shook as she thought about sister at home who needed medicine. What would happen to them now? What had Mrs. Sarah done to the kind man who gave Emily a job when no one else would? But let me tell you how this scary story really started. 3 months earlier, Emily was a happy girl who lived in a small house in the poor part of Lagos with her sick little sister, Grace. Emily was only 19 years old, but she had to work hard to take care of Grace, who was just 8 years old. Their parents had died in a car accident 2 years ago, and now it was just Emily and Grace against the world. Every morning, Emily would wake up before the sun came up. She would make sure Grace took her medicine for her weak heart. Then she would go to the rich part of the city to look for work. Most days she would clean houses or wash clothes for rich families. The money was not much, but it was enough to buy food and Grace's medicine. Emily had heard about Mr. Madison from other maids who worked in the big houses. They said he was the richest man in Lagos, maybe even in all of Nigeria. His company built tall buildings all over the city. Some people said he had so much money that he could buy a whole street if he wanted to. "Hey you!" someone called out. Emily turned around and saw a woman in a fancy dress walking toward her. This was Mrs. Sarah Madison, though Emily didn't know her name yet. Mrs. Sarah had long, straight hair and wore makeup that made her look like a movie star. "Are you looking for work?" Mrs. Sarah asked, looking Emily up and down. Emily's clothes were old and had been washed so many times they were starting to fade, but they were clean. "Yes, ma'am," Emily said politely. Her mother had taught her to always be respectful to adults. "My last maid quit yesterday," Mrs. Sarah said with a mean smile. "She said the work was too hard. Are you afraid of hard work?" "No, ma'am," Emily replied. She was used to hard work. Taking care of Grace and working different jobs every day was already very hard. "Good. You can start today. I'll pay you 50,000 naira every month, but you have to work every day except Sunday. You'll clean the house, cook some meals, and do whatever else I tell you to do." Emily's eyes got big. 50,000 naira was more money than she had ever seen at one time. With that much money, she could buy better medicine for Grace and maybe even some new clothes for both of them. "Thank you, ma'am," Emily said, trying not to cry from happiness. "I promise I will work very hard." "You better," Mrs. Sarah said. "If you don't do your job well, I'll fire you faster than you can blink." And so Emily started working at the Madison house. The house was so big that it took her 2 hours just to walk through all the rooms. There were 15 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a kitchen bigger than Emily's whole house, and a living room with a television as big as a wall. Mr. Madison was very different from his wife. When Emily first met him, he was reading a newspaper in his study. He was a tall man with kind eyes and grey hair. When he saw Emily, he smiled warmly. "You must be the new maid," he said in a gentle voice. "What's your name?"
"Emily, sir," she answered, looking down at her shoes. "Look up when you talk to me, Emily," he said kindly. "There's no shame in honest work. You seem like a good person." From that first day, Mr. Madison was always nice to Emily. When he saw her working hard, he would say, "Thank you, Emily," or "You're doing a great job." Sometimes, when Mrs. Sarah wasn't around, he would ask Emily about her family. Emily told him about Grace and how sick she was. Mr. Madison listened carefully and asked questions like a father would. When Emily finished talking, Mr. Madison reached into his wallet and pulled out 20,000 naira. "This is extra money for your sister's medicine," he said. "Don't tell my wife about it. She doesn't like it when I give extra money to the workers." Emily wanted to cry from happiness, but she just said, "Thank you, sir," and put the money in her pocket carefully. This became their little secret. Every few weeks, Mr. Madison would give Emily extra money for Grace's medicine or food. He never asked for anything back. He was just a kind man who wanted to help. But Mrs. Sarah was very different. She was always angry about something. If Emily cleaned a room and left one tiny spot of dust, Mrs. Sarah would scream at her for an hour. If the food was too hot or too cold, Mrs. Sarah would throw the plate on the floor and make Emily clean it up. "You're just like all the other poor people," Mrs. Sarah would say when she was angry. "Stupid and useless. The only reason I keep you is because good maids are hard to find." Emily never talked back to Mrs. Sarah, even when the mean words hurt her feelings. She needed this job too much to make Mrs. Sarah more angry.
The other workers in the house tried to warn Emily about Mrs. Sarah. There was James, the old man who took care of the garden. He had worked for the Madison family for 10 years. "Be very careful around Mrs. Sarah," James told Emily one day when they were both working outside. "She's not a good person. I've seen her do terrible things when she gets angry." "What kind of terrible things?" Emily asked. James looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Last year, there was a maid named Rose. Mrs. Sarah caught Rose talking to Mr. Madison in the garden. They were just talking about Rose's son who was sick, but Mrs. Sarah got very jealous. The next day, Rose was gone. Mrs. Sarah told everyone that Rose stole money, but I know that wasn't true. Rose was a good person." Emily felt scared when she heard this story. She thought about all the times Mr. Madison had been kind to her and given her extra money. What would Mrs. Sarah do if she found out? "Why doesn't Mr. Madison stop his wife from being so mean?" Emily asked. James shook his head sadly. "Mr. Madison is a good man, but he travels a lot for his business. He doesn't see how Mrs. Sarah treats the workers when he's not here. And Mrs. Sarah is very good at acting sweet when her husband is around." This was true. When Mr. Madison was home, Mrs. Sarah would smile and speak softly. She would even say nice things to Emily in front of her husband. But the moment Mr. Madison left the house, Mrs. Sarah would become mean again. As the weeks went by, Emily started to notice something strange. Mrs. Sarah would often leave the house at night after Mr. Madison went to sleep. She would put on dark clothes and sneak out through the back door. Emily saw this happen many times when she was working late or staying overnight to take care of Grace, who sometimes got sicker at night. Emily didn't think much about Mrs. Sarah's strange trips at first. Rich people did lots of things that poor people didn't understand. Maybe Mrs. Sarah went to fancy parties or meetings that happened at night. But then Emily started hearing phone calls that didn't sound right. Mrs. Sarah's voice would change when she talked on the phone. Instead of her usual angry or fake sweet voice, she would sound excited and happy. Emily couldn't hear all the words, but she heard Mrs. Sarah say things like "soon" and "the plan is working" and "he won't suspect anything." One night, Emily was cleaning the kitchen when she heard Mrs. Sarah talking on the phone in the next room. This time, Mrs. Sarah was talking louder than usual, and Emily could hear more of what she was saying. "Yes, I put it in his food again tonight," Mrs. Sarah said. "Just a little bit, like you told me. He's getting weaker every day, but it's slow enough that no one will think it's strange." Emily's blood turned cold. Was Mrs. Sarah talking about Mr. Madison? Was she putting something bad in his food? Emily thought about how Mr. Madison had been looking tired lately. He used to walk around the house with energy, but now he moved slowly. Sometimes he would sit down suddenly, like he was dizzy. Emily had thought he was just working too hard, but now she wondered if something else was happening. The phone call continued. "Don't worry," Mrs. Sarah said. "In a few more weeks, he'll be so sick that everyone will think it's natural when he dies. Then all his money will be mine, and we can be together." Emily dropped the plate she was holding. It crashed to the floor and broke into pieces. The sound was so loud that Mrs. Sarah stopped talking and came into the kitchen. "What are you doing, you clumsy girl? Can't you do anything right?" "Sorry, ma'am," Emily said quickly, getting down on her knees to pick up the broken pieces. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely hold the pieces. Mrs. Sarah stared at Emily for a long moment. "How long have you been in here cleaning?" "Just a few minutes, ma'am," Emily lied. She was too scared to tell the truth. Mrs. Sarah said, still watching Emily carefully. "Finish cleaning this mess and then go home. Don't come back until tomorrow afternoon." Emily nodded and cleaned up the broken plate as fast as she could. All she wanted to do was get out of that house and think about what she had heard. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Mrs. Sarah's phone call. Was someone really helping her poison Mr. Madison? And who was this person that Mrs. Sarah wanted to be with after her husband died? Emily thought about telling someone what she had heard, but who would believe her? She was just a poor maid, and Mrs. Sarah was a rich, important woman. If Emily accused Mrs. Sarah of trying to hurt her husband, Mrs. Sarah could just say Emily was lying and trying to cause trouble. But Emily couldn't just do nothing. Mr. Madison had been so kind to her and Grace. He had helped them when no one else would. Emily had to find a way to help him, even if it was dangerous. The next day, Emily went back to work and tried to act normal. She watched Mrs. Sarah carefully, looking for signs of what she was doing to hurt Mr. Madison. Emily noticed that Mrs. Sarah always made Mr. Madison's morning coffee herself. She wouldn't let any of the other workers do it, saying that her husband liked his coffee made in a special way. But now, Emily wondered if Mrs. Sarah was putting poison in the coffee. Emily also saw that Mrs. Sarah cooked special meals for her husband sometimes. She would make his favorite soup or a special sandwich and bring it to him personally. Emily used to think this was sweet, like a good wife taking care of her husband. But now, she wondered if these special meals were how Mrs. Sarah was making Mr. Madison sick. For 3 days, Emily watched and worried. Mr. Madison did seem to be getting weaker. He would eat his meals and then feel sick afterward. Sometimes he would hold his stomach and make faces like he was in pain. On the 4th day, something scary happened. Emily was cleaning the living room when she heard a loud crash from upstairs. She ran up to see what had happened and found Mr. Madison lying on the bathroom floor. He was awake, but looked very weak and confused. "Mr. Madison," Emily cried, rushing to help him. "Are you okay? What happened?" "I don't know," he said in a weak voice. "I felt dizzy and fell down. This has been happening more often lately." Emily helped him sit up and get back to his bedroom. She brought him water and asked if she should call a doctor, but Mr. Madison said he was feeling better and didn't want to worry about it. But Emily was very worried. She knew that Mrs. Sarah was doing something terrible to this kind man, and it was getting worse. Emily had to do something to stop it, but she didn't know what. That evening, Mrs. Sarah left the house again for one of her mysterious night trips. Emily decided this was her chance to look for evidence of what Mrs. Sarah was doing. If she could find the poison or something else that proved Mrs. Sarah was hurting her husband, maybe Emily could show it to someone who would believe her.
Emily waited until she was sure Mrs. Sarah was gone. Then she snuck into Mr. and Mrs. Madison's bedroom. She looked through Mrs. Sarah's dresser drawers, her closet, and her jewelry box, but she didn't find anything strange. Then Emily remembered Mrs. Sarah's purse. Rich women always carried big purses with lots of things inside. Maybe the poison was in there. Emily found Mrs. Sarah's purse on a table in the bedroom. Her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone in the house would hear it. She opened the purse and looked inside. There were the usual things: makeup, money, keys, and credit cards. But at the bottom of the purse, Emily found a small bottle with no label on it. The bottle contained a clear liquid that looked like water, but Emily knew it wasn't water. Emily took the bottle out and held it up to the light. This had to be the poison that Mrs. Sarah was using to make Mr. Madison sick. But what should Emily do with it? If she took it, Mrs. Sarah would notice it was gone. But if she left it, Mrs. Sarah would keep using it to hurt Mr. Madison. Emily was thinking about what to do when she heard a car outside. Mrs. Sarah was coming back early. Emily quickly put the bottle back in the purse and ran out of the bedroom. She pretended to be cleaning the hallway when Mrs. Sarah came inside. "What are you still doing here?" Mrs. Sarah asked suspiciously. "I told you to go home after dinner." "I wanted to finish cleaning the upstairs hallway, ma'am," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll go home now." Mrs. Sarah stared at Emily for a long moment, like she was trying to read Emily's thoughts. "Make sure you lock the door when you leave," she said finally. Emily nodded and gathered her cleaning supplies. As she was leaving, she heard Mrs. Sarah going upstairs to her bedroom. Emily knew that Mrs. Sarah would check her purse and see that the bottle was still there. But now Emily knew for sure that Mrs. Sarah was poisoning her husband. The next morning, Emily came to work early. She had made a decision during the night. She was going to try to talk to Mr. Madison and warn him about what his wife was doing. It was dangerous, and Mrs. Sarah might fire her or do something worse. But Emily couldn't watch a good man die without trying to save him. Emily waited until Mrs. Sarah left the house to go shopping. Then she went to Mr. Madison's study, where he was reading his newspaper and drinking his morning coffee.
"Mr. Madison," Emily said nervously, "I need to tell you something very important." Mr. Madison looked up from his newspaper and saw how scared Emily looked. "What's wrong, Emily? You look upset." Emily took a deep breath. This was the most important thing she had ever said to anyone. "Sir, I think someone is trying to hurt you." Mr. Madison put down his newspaper and gave Emily his full attention. "What do you mean? Who would want to hurt me?" Emily's hands were shaking, but she knew she had to be brave. "I heard Mrs. Sarah talking on the phone. She said she was putting something in your food to make you sick. I think she's trying to poison you." Mr. Madison's face changed. He looked shocked and confused, like Emily had just told him the sky was green instead of blue. "Emily," he said slowly, "that's a very serious thing to say about my wife. Are you sure you heard what you think you heard?" "Yes, sir," said Emily. "She said she was putting something in your food every day, and that in a few weeks you would be so sick that everyone would think it was natural when you died. She said then all your money would be hers." Mr. Madison was quiet for a long moment.
Emily could see he was thinking very hard about what she had told him. "I have been feeling sick lately, and it always seems to happen after I eat or drink something Sarah has prepared for me. I found a bottle in her purse. It has clear liquid in it with no label. I think that's what she's been using." Mr. Madison stood up from his chair, but he moved slowly, like he was still weak. "Show me," he said. Emily led Mr. Madison upstairs to his bedroom. Mrs. Sarah's purse was still on the table where Emily had seen it the night before.
He held it up to the light, just like Emily had done. "This doesn't look like anything Sarah would normally have," he said. "And you're right, there's no label on it." "What should we do?" Emily asked. Mr. Madison thought for a moment. "First, I'm going to take this bottle to a laboratory to find out what's in it. If it really is poison, then we'll know for sure what Sarah is doing. But Emily, if you're right about this, it means Sarah is trying to kill me. That's very dangerous for both of us." Emily felt scared, but she also felt proud that she was helping Mr. Madison. "I don't care if it's dangerous, sir. You've been so kind to me and my sister. I can't let something bad happen to you." Mr. Madison smiled at Emily, but it was a sad smile. "You're a good person, Emily, but we have to be very careful. If Sarah finds out that we know what she's doing, she might try to hurt us." "What do you want me to do?" Emily asked. "Act normal," Mr. Madison said. "Don't let Sarah know that you told me anything. I'm going to pretend that I don't know what she's doing, while I try to figure out how to stop her safely." Emily nodded. "I can do that, sir." "And Emily," Mr. Madison added, "from now on I won't eat or drink anything that Sarah prepares for me. I'll find excuses to avoid it." For the next week, Emily tried to act normal around Mrs. Sarah, but it was very hard. Every time Mrs. Sarah was mean to her or said cruel things, Emily wanted to shout, "I know what you're doing!" But she remembered Mr. Madison's warning to be careful. Mr. Madison was also acting normal, but Emily could see that he was being more careful. When Mrs. Sarah offered to make him coffee or cook him a special meal, he would say he wasn't hungry or that he had already eaten. Mrs. Sarah seemed frustrated that her husband wasn't eating the food she prepared, but she couldn't force him to eat without seeming suspicious. After a few days, Mr. Madison called Emily into his study when Mrs. Sarah was out of the house. "The laboratory results came back," he said, holding a piece of paper. "The liquid in that bottle was a slow-acting poison. If someone took a little bit every day for several weeks, it would make them very sick and eventually kill them." Emily felt sick to her stomach. She had been right, but she didn't feel good about it. It was terrible to know that Mrs. Sarah really was trying to kill her own husband.
"What are we going to do now?" Emily asked. "I've been thinking about that," Mr. Madison said. "I can't just call the police and have Sarah arrested. She would say the bottle wasn't hers, or that someone else put it in her purse. We need more evidence." "What kind of evidence?" "We need to catch her in the act of putting poison in my food or drink," Mr. Madison said. "Or we need to record her talking about her plan." Emily thought about this. "She makes phone calls, sometimes at night. She talks about the plan and about being with someone after you die. Maybe we could record one of those calls." Mr. Madison looked interested. "Do you know when she makes these calls?" "Usually around 10 o'clock at night, after you go to sleep. She goes to the living room or the kitchen, so you won't hear her." "All right," Mr. Madison said. "Tomorrow night, I'll pretend to go to sleep early. You hide somewhere where you can hear her phone call, and we'll try to record what she says." Emily felt scared, but excited. They were going to catch Mrs. Sarah and stop her evil plan. The next night, everything went according to plan. Mr. Madison went to his bedroom early and turned off the lights. Emily hid behind the kitchen door where she could hear into the living room. She had a small recording device that Mr. Madison had given her. At exactly 10 o'clock, Mrs. Sarah came downstairs and made a phone call. Emily turned on the recording device and listened carefully. "It's not working as fast as we planned," Mrs. Sarah said to whoever was on the phone. "Madison has been avoiding the food and drinks I prepare for him. I think he might be getting suspicious." Emily couldn't hear what the other person was saying, but she could hear Mrs. Sarah's responses. "No, I don't think the maid knows anything. She's too stupid to figure it out, but Madison is smarter than I thought." There was a pause, and then Mrs. Sarah continued. "Maybe we should try a different approach. What if we just put a large dose in something he definitely will eat? It would work faster, but it might look more suspicious." Emily's hands were shaking as she held the recording device. Mrs. Sarah was talking about giving Mr. Madison enough poison to kill him quickly. "All right," Mrs. Sarah said. "Tomorrow is Friday and Madison always eats the special dinner I make on Friday nights. It's our tradition. I'll put enough of the poison in his food to finish this once and for all." Emily felt like she was going to be sick. Mrs. Sarah was planning to kill Mr. Madison tomorrow night. The phone call continued for a few more minutes, but Emily had heard enough. She carefully snuck back upstairs and went to Mr. Madison's bedroom. She knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Mr. Madison said quietly. Emily went into the room and saw that Mr. Madison was sitting in a chair by the window. He hadn't been sleeping at all.
Emily nodded and handed him the recording device. "Mr. Madison, she's planning to kill you tomorrow night. She's going to put a lot of poison in your Friday dinner." Mr. Madison listened to the recording with a grim expression on his face. When it was finished, he looked at Emily with sad eyes. "Now we have the evidence we need," he said. "Tomorrow morning, I'll take this to the police and they'll arrest Sarah." Emily felt relieved that they had caught Mrs. Sarah, but she also felt sad. It must be terrible for Mr. Madison to learn that his wife wanted to kill him. "Are you okay, sir?" Emily asked. Mr. Madison sighed. "I'm heartbroken, Emily. I loved Sarah, and I thought she loved me too. I never imagined she could do something like this." "I'm sorry, sir," Emily said. She didn't know what else to say. "Don't be sorry," Mr. Madison said. "You saved my life. If you hadn't been brave enough to tell me what you heard, I would be dead soon." Emily smiled a little. She was glad she had helped Mr. Madison, even though it had been scary. But their relief didn't last long. As they were talking, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside the bedroom. Someone was walking around the house. Mr. Madison put his finger to his lips to tell Emily to be quiet. They both listened carefully to the footsteps. The person was walking slowly and carefully, like they were trying not to make noise. Then they heard Mrs. Sarah's voice, but she was talking to someone else. There was another person in the house.